So the impact of tourism in economic is felt both in direct and indirect ways, where direct economic impacts are created when communities like the following are sold: accommodation and entertainment, food and beverage services and retail opportunities, residents, visitors, businesses, and various levels of government, municipal to federal, all influence direct tourism impacts through their spending in or near a given tourism area. The key component of direct economic impacts of tourism is that they occur when a country's borders and are implemented by residents and non-residents for business and leisure purposes. Sa indirect naman sad is that indirect economic impacts of tourism can be found in investment spending surrounding a tourism offering from private, governmental interests. This investment may not explicitly be related to tourism but benefits the tourists and local stakeholders all the same. Indirect impacts of tourism are exemplified by the purchase and sale of intermediary items like additional supplies for restaurants during the high tourism season, or within sidewalks in busy downtown centers. Indirect economic impacts, the supply chain, investment, and government collective account for 50.7% of the total GDP contribution from travel and tourism in 2014. So, there are positive impacts of tourism in economic and also a negative impacts of tourism, which is negative. So, there are both positive and negative effects on communities related to the economic impacts of tourism in their communities. So, a positive impact can refer to the increase in jobs, a higher quality of life for locals, and an increase in wealth of an area. Tourism also has the advantage of rebuilding and restoring historic sites and encouraging the revitalization of cultures. A positive impact is to increase or to make better either for the tourists, the host community and residents, and or the tourist destination. Positive impacts are related more to the materialistic well-being rather than to the happiness of a host, community, or tourist. So the negative impacts are the effects that are caused in most cases at the tourist destination site with detrimental impacts to the social and cultural area as well as the natural environment. As the population increases, so do the impacts resources become unsustainable and exhausted. The carrying capacity for tourists in a destination site may become depleted. Often, when negative impacts occur, it is too late to impose restrictions and regulations. Tourist destinations seem to discover that many of the negative impacts are found in the development stage of the tourism area life cycle. So the impact of tourism in socio-cultural is that an inherent aspect of tourism is the seeking of authenticity, the desire to experience a different cultural setting in its natural environment. Although cultural tourism provides opportunities for understanding and education, there are serious impacts that arise as a result. It is not only the volume of tourism at work, but the types of social interactions that occur between tourists and hosts. There are three broad effects at the local level: the commodification of culture, the demonstration effect, and the acculturation of another culture. So, ang commodification of culture di ay is mo ni siya ang kuan. Culture refers to the use of a cultural traditions and artifacts in order to sell and profit for the local economy. With the rise of tourism, authors argue that commodification is inevitable. There are both positive and negative socio-cultural impacts of commodification on a culture. One positive is the creation of business and jobs for local craftsmen who are able to sell their goods to tourists. Rural tourism is seen as a cure for poverty and leads the improvement of transportation and development of telecommunications in an area. For the tourists, commodification creates an interest for traditional arts and social practices. The second broad effects of socio-cultural of tourism is the demonstration effect. The demonstration effect was introduced to tourism when the researchers were looking into the effects of social influences from tourism on local communities. The demonstration effect argues that local inhabitants copy the behavioral patterns of tourists. There are a number of social, economic, and behavioral reasons as to why the demonstration effect comes into play. One economic and social reason is that locals copy the consumption patterns of those higher up the social scale in order to improve their social status. Tourism has also been accused of affecting social behavior of the younger members of a host community, who may imitate what tourists do, impacting traditional value system. And the third broad impacts of social-cultural of tourism is the acculturation. It is the process of modifying an existing culture through borrowing from the more dominant of cultures. Typically in tourism, the community being acculturated is the destination community, which then experiences dramatic shifts in social structure and worldview. Societies adapt to acculturation in one of two ways. Innovation diffusion is when the community adopts practices that are developed by another group, whereas cultural adaptation is less adoption of a new culture and more the process of changing when the existing culture is changed. Acculturation is often seen as a method of modernizing a community, and there are many opposing views to the concept of modernization. So, kanang naapod positive and negative impact ang socio-cultural sa tourism. So, ang positive impact is the positive impacts of socio-cultural is there are numbers of benefits for the host community as a result of tourism. This includes economic benefits such as opportunities for local businesses, which allows for increased trade among the increased number of visitors, and then develops a variety of local businesses. In addition, tourism also brings employment opportunities, enhances the economy of the region, and creates revenue for the local government. Tourists also use public services, creating funding for public services such as health, the police, and the fire department, as well as increasing the demand for public transport. The negative impact of socio-cultural is cultural interactions can have negative effects. So in terms of economic disadvantages, local communities need to be able to fund the tourist demands, which leads to an increase of taxes. The overall price of living increases in tourist destinations in terms of rate and rates, as well as property values going up. This can be problematic for locals looking to buy property or others on a fixed income. In addition, to balance out tourist destinations, the number of locals to tourists must be relatively equal. This can be problematic for tourists as their access could be denied. So that's all. Thank you.
Environmental. The three main impact areas of tourism are environmental, social, and economic. Environmental impacts can include degradation of natural resources, increased pollution and loss of biodiversity, depletion of natural resources. Tourism development can put pressure on natural resources when it increases consumption in areas when resources are already scarce or short. Water. Tourism industry's overuse of water resources is a concern, particularly in drier regions like the Mediterranean where water scarcity is a problem. Tourists tend to consume more water when on holiday than they do at home, leading to water shortages and degradation of water supplies. Overpumping of wells for golf courses can also cause saline intrusion into groundwater, which further degrades freshwater resources. So, sustainable tourism practice aim to reduce water consumption and promote conservation of freshwater resources. Local resources. Tourism can put pressure on local resources like energy, food, and other raw materials that may already be short in supply. Greater extraction and transportation of these resources exacerbates the physical impacts associated with their exploitation. The seasonal nature of tourism can result in a high demand for resources in the high season to meet tourists' expectation for proper heating, hot water, and other amenities. Sustainable tourism practices aim to reduce the pressure on local resources and promote the use of renewable resources. Pollution. Tourists can contribute to various forms of pollution, including air emissions, noise pollution, solid waste and littering, sewage and wastewater, and etc. These pollutants can have negative impacts on the environment. And for the air pollution and noise, transportation emissions for air, road, and rail have increased in response to the rising numbers of tourists. These emissions contribute to global issues such as acid rain, global warming, and photochemical pollution. For example, noise generated for snowmobiles can alter natural activity patterns of animals. Solid waste and littering. Improper waste disposal in areas with high tourist activity and natural attractions can harm the environment. For instance, cruise ships in the Caribbean produce over 70,000 tons of waste annually. Some popular trails in the Peru and Nepal are even nicknamed Coca-Cola Trail and Toilet Paper Trail.